My name is Josh Hagen, and so I got to call. This was my second Olympics that I covered for the CBC, and I got to call the first ever Olympic gold medal by a Canadian judoka, Krista Deguchi. So famously, she fought against Mimi Hugh of South Korea, and sort of infamously, Mimi Hugh is known for having a really ugly judo. She has a high attack rate, but the quality of the attacks aren't very good, which led to somewhat of a controversial moment because the way that they called it, so the Canadian won, which is an amazing moment, but the air was taken out of the balloon a little because normally there's sort of a build up to seeing the third penalty called. And they come to the line and sort of he tells them to fix their gi. And in the middle of telling them to fix their gi, he just says, Shiro Hansakomake, like really quick against the Korean. So it's sort of even on air, like trying to call that on air. It was sort of like, did that just happen? Like, is it over? And so um, normally it would be like fix your gi, make a really big stance, turn towards the judoka to give the third penalty. And because they sort of muffled it together, maybe the referee was a little stressed in the moment or whatever. But it sort of made this sort of anticlimactic moment for such a great event for Canadian judo. And then we sort of did some interviews after that process to sort of educate the public more so outside of judo as to what happened and why that felt a little funny. But it was a really cool thing. I've called 2 Olympic Games. No woman had ever medaled at an Olympics before Tokyo. And I've called 3 Olympic medals, all by women, and one was our first ever Olympic title. So I'm the baby of 5 kids, and I grew up in a town about 3 hours from Toronto. And my mom had helped at our local dojo quite a lot. So she did the bookkeeping for the dojo, and just a reference of how pricing and things used to be. At our dojo in 1980s when I started, it was $15 a month to do judo. But if your whole family did it, unlimited members of the family, was $25 a month. And then my mom started doing the paperwork, so I think we didn't pay. Like we got to do it for free. We'd help set up the mats and everything. From that, 3 of us did quite a lot of judo. My brother Travis, my brother Sean, and I, all 3 of us got to black belt, and all 3 were competitive. We would go to a lot of events throughout Ontario. And so by the time I was still young, maybe 6 or 7, my parents started working at events with Judo Ontario. So my dad would get all the timekeepers and scorekeepers together. And then my mother would, like for all the mats, he'd do that for all the tournaments. And my mother would do draw sheet setup and run draw sheets all day with people like Fran McCrodden. So they would do that at they do that at every Judo Ontario event. And then they would do that at most dojo events. So like if Shimbuken put on a tournament, they'd often help a lot. If Kawasaki's Rendoken put on a tournament or Budokan, my parents would do that quite often. And then they would give us like a hotel room, which was really nice for our family because with that travel and you weigh in the same day, that means we'd have to leave our house at like 2, 3 in the morning to get to a tournament to compete. So this allowed us to go arrive the night before major provincial events at least. And my parents did that for my whole life until my mom got quite sick and I stopped competing. So till I was maybe 30, like 15, almost 15 years ago probably, especially my mom did that quite a long time. And eventually they were awarded from the province of Ontario for their so much hours put in from a volunteer standpoint. Yeah. So her and my mom were really, really close. So that was one of my mom's best friends for sure. So they spoke all the time on the phone. They would be hours and hours and hours. You'd come home and she'd be on the phone and doing other things, but she'd be on the phone with Fran for hours. So they were very close. And then they'd be at tournaments and they'd be there all the time. And the best way I would describe Fran, well, she had a lot in common with my mom. So they just loved to help, and it was really important to them. They wanted to provide opportunities for kids to do judo, and they wanted to be treated fairly, but then they wanted them to have fun and have a good experience. So a good friend of mine named Mark Kasperzik, I had told him of Fran's passing, and he said, "Oh, she was like everyone's mom. Like you'd go there, and it just sort of felt like you're seeing your other mom, kind of that kind of thing." And that's how it felt to me because she was really close to my mom. So you'd go there, and it's like, these sort of 2 moms looking to take care of you and make sure everybody was happy and well taken care of and supported. And so they did a lot more than just the draw sheets in that way. And that was, again, my entire life, really. Years I met Fran. So we weren't that competitive. He stopped doing judo. He had pretty significant injuries. So he really stopped competing around 17, 18. My brothers Sean and I, 2 years apart, we competed together until I stopped when I was about 23. He competed at things like the Junior Pan Ams and Senior Commonwealth Championships, and our weight classes were one apart. So we competed a lot, which led to some friction in short term. We competed once at a significant tournament. I think it was the Quebec Open. He beat me for a bronze medal, which was a very awkward, tough match. But yeah, we were like our primary training partners most of our lives because we'd go to other places. And when we'd travel, we'd often be like 9 and 10 and 11 years old in senior classes. So we would have to partner with each other because a 9 or a 10-year-old with most 18-year-olds, or at that time, there was more adult men training, I would say. You'd have a lot of people in their 20s. So a 10-year-old's not providing much of a challenge. So they'd help us, but we were each other's primary training partners till our late teens, I would say. So I got my first one around 17, sort of typical for someone that's done judo their whole life. I think the youngest you can get it is 16. We never felt this like pressure that we had to get it. So somewhere around 17, I decided, oh, this is a good time to get my black belt, and I had plenty of points. So that's when I got my shodan. And then different than a lot, I guess, like once you got to black belt, which I always knew I was going to get. So it also didn't feel like an achievement in a sense that it probably does for lots of people. Or like now that I'm a coach, I see it as an achievement for my students to see them hang around and do all the training required to get there. But for me, it was just like matter of fact. I've done judo my whole life. Of course, I'm going to get there. I'm only a Nidan now, which I got like 2 years ago. So I was a black belt, a shodan longer than I was not. And I just never felt this desire of ranking up for whatever reason. It's like I've done a ton of coach education and a ton of training and traveled around the world, but I never felt this real desire to rank up my belt because it doesn't necessarily mean you know more judo. Obviously, it's an indication that someone's done judo a long time. It's amazing when people like Nakamoto Sensei get to their 9th degree black belt. But I always just thought about getting better at judo, and I didn't really put that much time or thought into the next one. So I 2 years ago or so got my Nidan. I will go for my Sandan within the next year, and then we'll sort of see where we go from there. Yeah, it's funny. There's a movie called Rounders where he says it's a great movie about gambling, and he says it's not the wins that you remember, it's the big falls, and so my last national championships, I was winning huge, and I felt amazing, and my training had felt so good. I was living in New York at the time, training under Jason Morris, who's was about to be the U.S. national coach for the Beijing Olympics, but he was a 92 Olympic silver medalist, 93 world bronze medalist. So I was living and training with him, and the whole bunch of people there, Justin Flores and Travis Stevens, and a great bunch of athletes, Nick Del Popolo. And I would go into nationals. I feel super confident. I'm doing really, really well. And literally sort of like a slip moment that happens in judo when the guy catches me. And at that time, you weren't guaranteed another fight if you lost. And that was it. So my last nationals, when I felt the best I'd ever felt, and I was fully expecting to medal, I basically had a slip fall, lost that match. So that one's memorable in the negative. I guess in the positive, I remember I took a 5th at senior nationals when I was like 20, maybe 19. And on my way to the 5th place, which I fell just short of a bronze, I fought an athlete that I thought highly of from New Brunswick, where I threw him for a big score and armbarred him. And I think that was to get into the quarterfinal or into the semifinal. So that was sort of a match that I was like, okay, this is a really hard one. This would be a really cool match to win. So beating him that day on my way to a 5th place finish was a pretty cool win for me. I think distance. I think if I was competing now, money would be a bigger factor as well. So distance was an issue because we didn't have training partners, a lot of training partners, because our town was 2,700 people. So you had to travel everywhere all the time. So we would drive to Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, Kitchener. All those are 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-hour drives. So just living on the road and trying to keep a regular diet and schedule and training schedule, and the fatigue that's set in when to do 3 hours of judo requires 6 hours of driving. It's really hard. So that was really, really difficult. The big shift now, I think, if I was to relive my life and be in the same community, is that now maybe we'd find different ways to handle that better. But now the expectation, which can be really good, I think it brings up the standard of judo, but there's so much travel interprovincially. So when kids do the national tour, they really do the national tour, and that comes at a significant cost. So my team leading Saskatchewan, we'd go to tournaments in Alberta, BC, Montreal, Ontario, Winnipeg, and then internationally. And so the trick is, how do you make that affordable for families that aren't incredibly wealthy? Right. Yeah. Well, it is an interesting thing culturally. I think the nicest people in the country, the world would pretty much agree, are East Coasters. And some of the nicest people I ever met in my life on top of that were people in Mexico City. And so there's a thing about the requirement of community when you're not wealthy. If you have so much money that you can live as an island and you don't require a neighbor, then you don't care about that relationship. If you don't have a lot of money and your neighbor doesn't have a lot of money, then you might need to help each other at some point. So I think that's sort of a natural thing that happens. And some of the nicest people, the East Coast isn't known for its wealth, or nor is Mexico City. So there's an interesting thing which tied into judo. Growing up wanting to be a full-time judoka and wanting to be an Olympic athlete, none of us have money. So you're all doing that. You're all sleeping on people's couches regularly, and you have a different roommate all the time, or someone stays with you for 6-week periods. And that sort of like desire to reach the same place, and at least the financial sacrifice or professional delay that you're putting on yourself to chase that dream, I think builds bonds that are incredibly rare in life, for sure. One is, I think, appreciate the opportunities that judo provides, unlike other sports, in that we have so much more access to greatness. So, for instance, if you're a hockey player and you go to a hockey tournament in Edmonton, it's highly unlikely that Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid or Zach Hyman is going to be there to lead some training session after. And if they were there, it might be incredibly rare. Or if they were there and it wasn't so rare, that camp might be $1 million. This year, following Edmonton, Artur Margelidon, qualified 3 times for the Olympics, went twice. He was injured once. 5th place at the Olympics. He's leading the training camp. Katrin Bushman-Pinard is coming to our girls' camp in Saskatchewan. So the accessibility to people that have done such incredible things, and then the quality of people that they're really great people. So if you go up to Artur and you ask him about judo, he'll be excited to answer your questions. And being 5th in judo at the Olympics in a sport that's practiced in 204 countries means he's truly exceptional. So I think there's some things about judo that we think of, like we don't necessarily appreciate some of the amazing things. We're a little paranoid that judo's going to die or disappear because we always want it to be bigger and better and greater. But there's also some really amazing things. It's not going anywhere. It's practiced everywhere, and it's a really cool community. It's like a very humble community because it's not professional like Major League Baseball is. It makes people a lot more accessible. So I think that's something. Appreciate that. I think that would be a really big thing, is understand how cool an opportunity you have with this sport in your province, in your country,